Hello, friends. Welcome to Monk Chat. I'm Maya Soma, and I'm here with Bhante Sudaso. And we can start by paying homage to our original teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham dhammam sangham namassami. All right, so welcome to Ben Sunyanandi and Manal. Good to see you. And hello to Maria and everyone who is watching and hasn't checked in. So whenever you're ready, feel free to type in your questions and we'll try our best to answer them. But in the meanwhile, actually, we have two questions from from a friend actually that said that they couldn't make it online, so they wrote it as a comment. So we'll publish the first question here. Question number 1 says, can you share more about Dhamma? What the Buddha taught about Dhamma and how it applies to you in your life? Any advice for lay people regarding generosity? Bhante Sudaso?
Well, first off, Dhamma, the practice of generosity, is the fundamental basis of Buddhist practice. So it's the basic core practice that we do from the beginning to the end of the path. So practicing generosity, looking for opportunities to give things to others, to share resources with others, to give help to others, to give attention to others. And this is a way of practicing kindness and consideration and doing kind things for others, being considerate and thoughtful of others, and also a practice of letting go, a practice of renunciation. And ultimately, the entire Buddhist path is about renunciation. So then naturally, this practice of letting go, of renouncing some of one's resources or time or energy for the benefit of others, this is part of this practice of renunciation, of letting go, which allows us to learn how to let go of deeper issues, deeper problems of mental defilements, of self-centeredness, of self-identity, and so on. Again, Dhamma is a very important part of Buddhist practice. How it applies to us in our life? Well, actually, right now, we're doing an act of generosity in that we are offering a Dhamma program to the public. So right now, this is actually a practice of Dhamma right here. And our life is also built on Dhamma in the sense of, for example, we only eat what food is given to us each day. So this morning, we took our alms bowls and walked through town, and people gave us various food offerings, which then becomes our meal for the day. So this, again, is really critically important to the existence of the monastic orders in Buddhism. It's what makes it possible for us to exist. And it's also then a way to give others the opportunity to show their best side, and a way for us to appreciate the best side of others as well. So those are a few thoughts on generosity.
Great. Yes, thank you, Bhante. I will just add on to that by saying that, yes, it is a blessing, to be a monastic. We actually really live we are really in existence thanks to the generosity of lay people. So that is a blessing in and of itself, to actually be able to have that opportunity to see how much beauty there is in the world, especially these days that as soon as we open the news, we read how awful human beings can be. Well, we see every day how wonderful human beings can be. That's, daily recollection that our life really is supported by the generosity of others. And allowing lay people to practice giving is also one of the greatest blessings of being a monastic, right? So when I was a lay person, I was very, very happy to meet myself Buddhist monastics before deciding to become one of them, right? And one of the things was precisely because actually the sangha allows us, in virtue of these precepts, to practice generosity, to practice giving. And so in order to give something, we can have the something, but if there's nobody to receive it, then we can't practice generosity, we can't practice giving. So we can, whenever we have monastics around, then we can always rely on them. We know that there's someone who's going to be able to receive our gift. And then usually if they won't need the gift that they've been given, then they also give it to others who are in need. So we always know that whatever is given to the sangha actually goes towards the common good. So that's actually something really beautiful. And in terms of lay practice in particular, giving is very important on many different levels. One is that, in Buddhism, we're trying to let go of everything. But if we can't let go of something material, coarse, like objects, how can we expect to give, to be able to let go of something that is significantly more subtle, right? So the material things, how can we let go of our all of our opinions, our ideas, our attachments, right? If we can't let go of something so coarse as, food, or something so coarse as perhaps, anything that is kind of material that we have. And then this other thing is that as we start giving, and in particular, to spiritual practitioners, then we also start creating a pattern of mind, of association, to people who are pursuing something different from what we're told in the world to be pursuing. And so that action of the mind, right, that makes us that creates a habit, a pattern of mind where we are associating with good people. And then we can have access to really, really amazing spiritual practitioners, right? So I feel that personally, I was recollecting this, a while back. I was like, wow, I'm actually so lucky in this lifetime to have the opportunity to know so many senior monastics, to know so many good Buddhist practitioners. And then I was like, why? How did I, come with this like really good fortune, especially when we were in Australia, went to see Bhante Sujato, Ajahn Brahmali, like we were surrounded by so many like senior monks. And then I remembered that when I was a lay person, put a lot of effort, right, in doing lots of acts of generosity, of sharing the Dhamma, right? So I was able to learn the Dhamma, and also other lay people were able to learn the Dhamma. And so it's important whenever we're giving, then we're actually just growing automatically in Dhamma. So very, very important practice. And question number 2 from our friend, and then we'll get to the other questions. So it says, I made a commitment to my dogs that I love very much, but I'm thinking about ordaining a lot, and I feel that it might be unethical towards the dog. What is your opinion or advice to me? This is a source of suffering for me. Bhante?
Well, first of all, it is important to recognize that when one adopts an animal, that one is making a lifelong commitment to its care and well-being. And so if one feel like one cannot continue that for whatever reason, then it is one's responsibility to find another responsible, loving caretaker for that animal. So if one does have dogs, then you basically really have two options. You either take care of it for the duration of its natural lifespan, or you find somebody else who will commit to taking care of it for its natural lifespan. And also in that case, you need to take some time to make sure the transition process goes smoothly for the dogs so that it's not too emotionally damaging to them either. Because again, you've made a very serious commitment when you chose to adopt these animals. So you do need to make sure that you'll fulfill that commitment. As for you thinking about becoming a monastic, well, the truth is the vast majority of people who think they want to become monastics really don't. They just think they do. So you don't necessarily need to start thinking about what you're going to do with your dogs just yet. Instead, start going and spending some time at monasteries. And odds are, pretty quickly, you'll realize that you really don't want to be a monk. But maybe through the course of spending time at monasteries, then you'll realize that actually you do want to explore this path more deeply. In which case, you do need to start considering, do you want to go with option A, stay with the dogs for the duration of their natural life, or option B, try to find another responsible, loving caretaker for them. Those are your only two real options.
Great, thank you, Bante. And Manny asks, Venerables, how do we motivate us to practice during difficult times when things don't go our way? Thank you. It's very interesting because usually, well, first and foremost, when we talk about practice, it's very important to define what are we talking about when we say this word practice. So sometimes I suspect that actually from your question, you might be referring to meditation, right? Because then we're like, how do we motivate ourselves to meditate when we have difficult times? And so in the past 10 years, I started observing how there's like usually two types of people. The person who practices when everything goes well, and the person who practices when everything goes poorly. Right? And then when things change, as it's normal, then this question arises, right? So it's the person who practices only when things go well, then they're like, oh, how do we practice in difficult times? And the person who only practices during difficult times, and when things go well, they're like, oh, well, do I really need to do this meditation? Do I really need to practice? Actually, everything is going great. And so that's, I think, a problem that comes with, has to do with wrong view, really. So, like, we're not really quite understanding why we're doing our meditation practice. We're not quite understanding why we're following the teachings of the Buddha. And so we're not actually doing meditation or practicing the teachings of the Buddha in order to get a nicer life. I mean, that's a great side effect. But actually, these teachings are transcendental. We are trying to actually end rebirth. We're trying to really understand dukkha, the cause of dukkha, and realize the end of dukkha by practicing the Noble Eightfold Path. And so our entire life, whether things go well or unwell, should be preparing us for meditation practice, not the other way around. We shouldn't be practicing meditation in order to, keep being in samsara in a better way, but rather the other way around. And so if we start really thinking about our life, like what are we doing in every moment in our life in order to have a great meditation practice, then it will always be, we always have the motivation, because actually when we go and sit on the cushion, we have arrived. That's like basically, oh yes, finally I'm here. Instead of like getting to the cushion and going like, oh, I wanted to like do this and this other thing, and I have to do this at work, and then I actually want to do this other thing afterwards with my friends and my relationship. Do you see what I mean? Like we normally think about it in a backwards way. And so that is what creates this problem. So the motivation should be always the end of the cycle, the samsaric cycle. And so when there are difficult times, that's great, because actually we have the opportunity to recollect why samsara is problematic. If there weren't any danger in samsara, if there was only gratification, then we wouldn't be trying to end this cycle. But because everything in samsara is inherently unsatisfying, it's a very dangerous predicament. It has very little juice, very little sweetness to it. And so, yeah, it's great. Difficult times, then we get to recollect all the drawbacks of samsara, all the bitterness in samsara. And that should fuel our desire to end the suffering right here, right now, to end this cycle of birth and death, to actually put as much effort as possible in the path. So this would be, yeah. These are my thoughts. And Bhatt, did you have any thoughts?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. And anyone at the end of time says, I had a great experience with Dhamma recently. Wonderful. And Anna Maria asks, how's your health, Bhante Sudaso?
It's pretty good. Yeah.
Actually, also thanks to your generosity. Speaking of Dhamma, Anna Maria has sent actually a lot of nice treats and medicine for Bhante, in particular this Ayurvedic medicine that has been really supportive for his health. So sadhu, 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 anumotana. And Joe, good to see you. So Joe asks, how does one practice forgiveness for spiritual and communal neglect and indifference?
Well, it's important not to expect anything from anyone. If you expect something from others, then you will be disappointed. So don't expect others to pay attention to you. Don't expect others to care about you. If you expect others to pay attention to you, then when they don't, then you'll feel neglected. If you expect others to care about you, then when they don't, you'll feel like they're treating you poorly. So don't expect anything from anyone. That's the first important point here. Second thing is to remember that virtually every single person you meet is unenlightened. So naturally, they're not going to act with perfect wisdom and compassion because they're full of defilement and confusion, just as you are, just as most of us are. So recognizing that when other people do behave poorly, it's a reflection of their own inner suffering. It's a reflection of their own confusion and misunderstanding of reality. So instead, we can have compassion for them, recognizing that their apparent misbehavior is just a symptom of their own suffering and confusion. And we can wish for them to be free of that suffering and confusion, just as we also wish to be free of suffering and confusion. And finally, we can also practice non-neglect and non-indifference towards others. If you feel that you're receiving a lot of neglect and indifference, well, that's the result of karma. So start making the karma of caring about others. And then in the future, you will be cared about.
And there was also a follow-up. How does one embody love and care? Would you also like to add a few words on that?
Well, first of all, it always starts with cultivating a genuine sense of benevolence, a genuine wish for others to be happy. And then based upon that, then you start investigating and considering, what can I do that will be of benefit to others? What can I do that will be appreciated by others? What can I do that will make other people happy? What can I do that will make others feel cared about? And then do those things and see what happens. Observe the actual results. When you do something, is the result that the other people feel cared about and appreciated, or is it maybe that they feel like you did something inappropriate or something improper? And if so, investigate why. Investigate how you can improve your conduct so that others feel cared about and appreciated. So it's a process of, again, cultivating the underlying attitude of genuine benevolence, doing actions based upon that benevolence, and observing the results. So cultivating that quality of consideration, of thoughtfulness, of actually considering what can I do that will genuinely be felt as caring by the other person. Okay.
Great. Thank you, Bante. And Manal asks, on the subject of dana, it is much easier for me to offer dana with no merit earned versus the act of dana done resulting in something returning back. It is especially difficult for me to grasp the concept of dedication of merits because the thought process has always been gripped freely with no expectation. Would you offer some guidance on how to view this correctly? Yes, well, one of my favorite suttas, well, I always say that, favorite suttas, so I'm not credible anymore, but anyway, one of the suttas that I really appreciate on the subject of dana that the Buddha mentions is he lists actually several different ways through which we can give. So our intention behind giving. So one can be simply, it's a family tradition to give, so I give, or this is, the religion that I'm practicing, so therefore I am just practicing because it says it's good, or I see people that are in need and therefore they need to, like for example, this morning we went Pindapata, maybe perhaps some people saw us, they're like, well, they need some food, so I'll give them some food. So out of recognizing a need in the people and so forth. So they're different reasons. One can also be, I know that giving is a good thing that will result in heavenly realm. And the Buddha says, yeah, those are all of those kind of reasons actually lead to a heavenly destination. They're all kind of, he doesn't say, oh, you should only like give without without wanting anything back necessarily. But he says that there is a superior way of giving. He says that the superior way of giving is actually when we understand that giving is an ornament of mind. So no matter like, go about our days going out and like putting makeup on and like putting like beautiful clothing and jewelry, etc., to beautify the body. So this, in the same way, we can actually think of generosity as this lovely, beautiful decoration of the mind. And he says that is superior because while the other ones, yes, the result of that is leading to a heavenly rebirth, a good destination. Then at a certain point, that vipaka, so that result of that good karma, will come to the end, and then we'll be back to square one. So we're kind of still stuck in the cycle of samsara. But when we actually think and understand how generosity beautifies the mind, how it's an ornament of mind, well, that leads us actually to instead the cessation of rebirth. Right? So we understand how this is something really good and supportive and beautiful and really it needs to be cultivated. But it's very important, right, to understand causality here. Understand that every action has a result. And also the reason why, and I know, Manal, you are extremely generous, right? But like the fact that you're extremely generous, it's not there by chance. It's not just because you were born this way. It's because you have cultivated that beautiful habit in past lives. So you might not think of it as a big deal, but actually to conserve that and to upkeep that and to really see the beauty of it. And you have a lot of beauty in your giving. Yeah, you can actually really embrace it, really consider it. And it's completely okay to understand that this action has good results. We shouldn't be embarrassed about thinking, oh, like oh, it's, I'm only doing this without wanting good results. Actually, no, we should go like, I'm doing this, which is a really beautiful thing. And it's also great that I am sowing good seeds that will lead to my benefit and the benefit of all sentient beings. I think it's important. How about you, Bante? Do you have any thoughts on the matter?
I mean, it's good to remember that the practice of generosity is part of the path to awakening. So we actually don't give without expectation. We give with the expectation that giving is going to help us make progress towards awakening. So that's part of wisdom. Part of wisdom is recognizing that generosity produces good results, both mundane good results, but also an aid on the path to awakening. So that doesn't necessarily taint the act of generosity. It just means that one is wisely aware of the karmic results of practicing generosity.
And Joe says, could you kindly, out of compassion, give a teaching of the simile of the saw where what's being cut off metaphorically is not a physical limb, but a social limb that is being cut off from community?
And that's not really what the simile of the saw is about. So the simile of the saw it's actually quite direct. So the Buddha is saying that if people were cutting off your arms and legs, if you had hatred towards them, then you're not following the Buddha's instructions. That's basically what the simile of the saw says. So I guess if we wanted to apply the same principle to the case of feeling cut off from society, well then, if you feel that somebody else is cutting you off from society, well, first of all, that's probably incorrect. But if that's what you perceive as happening, well, then don't hate them. That's all the simile of the saw is saying. It's saying that there's never such a thing as justified hatred. There's never such a thing as justified resentment. That's the point of the simile of the saw.
Thank you, Bante. And then Joe also asks about our trip in Australia. Did you get to meet Ajahn Brahm in person? Well, we had actually already met Ajahn Brahm in person a few times. And this time around, actually, when we went to his monastery, we didn't meet him because he was in Europe. We traded places in the world. So it was very amusing. But to a certain degree, I was actually happier that we didn't get to meet him in his monastery. Not because obviously, not because I didn't want to go and pay respects to Ajahn Brahm. It wasn't planned that way, but actually because it was very interesting since we were talking about karma and vipaka, so intentional actions and consequences. It was really beautiful to see Ajahn Brahm not in the flesh, but actually in the sort of spirit, like in the vipaka, basically in this place that he set up 40 years ago or something like that. 30 years, I don't know exactly how long it is, but it's been several decades. And how beautiful actually the community is, how it's practicing well, and how present he is, even though he's not physically there. So actually, it also gave me a sense of how that community will be after he's going to pass away, after he won't be in the flesh here. And I will say that it will be, I predict, actually a very healthy community as it is right now. It has really a lot of metta and a lot of compassion, and all of his teachings were really 3D, like they were palpable. In as Bhante Sudazo actually described it, it's a very much the Bodhinyana community is a model of, rather than of conformity, of tolerance. So that has been very, very inspiring to us to see his way of teaching the Dhamma embodied in the community, embodied in the monastery, embodied in the spaces. So to a certain degree, we did meet Ajahn Brahm in person, just not as we tend to think of meeting Ajahn Brahm in person. And Anyone at the end of time asks, did any arahant ever feel nostalgic for samsara without wanting to go back, I mean? Bhante?
I'm not quite sure what you mean by nostalgic in this case, but briefly speaking, I would say no. The very nature of full awakening is that one is completely content with having let go of everything. So that would seem that nostalgia then just naturally wouldn't appear.
One thing, though, that comes to mind might be actually when Sariputta dies and the Buddha makes a comment about how great Sariputta was, something like that. But the whole point of him making that statement is not really nostalgia, but rather it's more a statement of like, see, everything that arises, even the best, is up to cease. So it was a skillful means to actually also show the community, if I remember correctly, the three characteristics of anicca, dukkha, and anatta, and while also, making the statement of how the absence of Sariputta in the audience was actually also palpable, noticeable, right? Okay, and Vivek, I wonder if it's Vivek, our friend Vivek, that we know. Hi, Venerables. With all the conflict in the world, I find that it affects me deeply. It can be hard to focus and to understand how to engage with or to address things I don't agree with. I often feel like I'm not doing enough, yet at the same time, I know I have everyday work and responsibilities that I must attend to. I would appreciate your guidance. Well, Vivek, first and foremost, hello, whether you are our good friend Vivek, or if you're another good friend that we might not know in person. So thank you for your question. And I will share actually a little anecdotal story. So recently, I took a week where I was actually reading the news. Normally, I try to avoid reading the news, and I was just reading the news and kind of catching up with what has been happening in the world, and it's quite atrocious. And also I was reading the news here in Italy, and there were lots of really horrible news stories on rape and on violence and on a lot of horrible things that are happening in this country. And I noticed that when I was not reading the news, in my mind, all of a sudden, all these thoughts started appearing, kind of fear, right? Like, oh, I don't know. Also with our practice of Tudong, like maybe we should be a little bit more careful. Like there's I don't know about people these days. I think they have changed. They're a little bit more dangerous than they used to be. And this whole like narrative started spinning, but it wasn't present before, right? And so also when I was going in the street, I was also kind of looking at people in a bit of a different way. So I'm sharing this because we have to be really careful whenever we are consuming these news, because I've really noticed the difference between not inserting this kind of message in my mind and inserting it. And so obviously as a monastic, we prefer not to insert anything, and maybe lay people should be a little bit more aware of what's happening in samsara, but also not too much, because it's also true that the news these days, as Bhante Sumita, this lovely Sri Lankan monk, says, it's not really the news, but it's always heartbreaking news. It's like breaking news, like everything that is heartbreaking in samsara, here's a list of it all. And so actually it's not an accurate depiction of reality. We're only hearing the worst of the worst of the worst that's happening. And if we're constantly gobbling that up, then we think that that's all there is. But the reality is a little bit different. There is the horror, and actually there's also the goodness, the beauty. So that's has always been the predicament. And so that we have to, it's very easy these days to gobble up all the, like, to be informed of everything that is tragic in samsara, but it's a little bit more difficult, especially with the way that we live today as individuals in a sort of disgregated like society where we spend a lot of time isolated and a lot of time on technology. It's very difficult to actually go like this and actually see the beauty of people. So as monastics, we're very privileged, as we were sharing before, because we do that every day on alms round, right? We do that every day on just because we rely on the generosity of people. So we have that opportunity so much. But even with that opportunity, I realized that if I was like, introducing too much of this heartbreaking news, that was really corroding and eroding all of this other perception of the goodness of people. And so we have 24 hours every day. We have to be really, really careful with how we're investing this time. And so if we are seeing that, it's difficult, as you're saying, you're feeling like you're not doing enough, I have everyday work, like that's a lot of anxiety. That's not wholesome, right? So maybe remove a little bit of that and try to focus on what you can actually do. Maybe with your neighbor. Maybe we can't solve all the issues of the world, but maybe we can, listen a little bit to our neighbor. Maybe we can do some few little acts of kindness. Like, let's start with what is actually doable, what is actually realistic. And then we can also recollect our goodness. And that makes us feel so much better. So this is what comes to mind. I don't know if Bhante, you have any thoughts?
That's good.
Okay. Oh, and Anna Maria says, a member from the Italian community mentioned Bhante felt sick recently. That's why I was asking. You're so very thoughtful. And Anna Maria also asks, is it disrespectful to name an animal Rahula?
It depends on why. Disrespectful? I don't particularly feel it's disrespectful.
When in doubt, leave it out. Yeah. I would say that
maybe not so much.
There are other names. And Kristen Damasuka says, can I offer 2 cents? Samsara included not just human realm, but also hell realm. They would never feel nostalgia because they understand suffering, I think.
Yeah, that's correct.
And
Whaling
says, Yasoa, you mentioned favorite sutta. What's your favorite sutta? That's why I was joking around, because I think 98% of the Sutta Pitaka is my favorite sutta. Yeah, I get a lot of Dhamma Sukha from the suttas. Actually, that's how I became a Buddhist. It was by reading the suttas, contemplating the suttas. The suttas converted me. Actually, that's also how I met Bhante Sudaso. Bhante Sudaso was teaching the suttas. So then I really resonated with his teachings. And now I'm also translating the suttas. So I'm quite big sutta fan. And Kristen says, I often feel desire to become monastic, but it also is a form of craving. So for now, I just try to observe the uposatha. If you have additional thoughts or suggestions, please share them.
Well, I mean, the desire to become a monastic, first of all, it's important to understand that monastic life is not an end to itself. Monastic life is an aid to attaining awakening. So the end goal is still awakening. This is just a tool that we use in order to move more quickly and safely in that direction. So desire to attain awakening, that is a form of desire, yes, but it's a good desire because it's a desire that leads to the relinquishment of all desire. So if one is craving monastic life because one wants a faster, more sure way towards awakening, well, that's actually a good thing. That isn't a problem. But as you're saying, you say for now you try to observe the Uposatha as a layperson. Well, that's also good. So as a layperson, practicing well, following the precepts, practicing generosity, studying the suttas, reading meditation, observing the Uposatha, these are all things which will incline the mind towards awakening. And then, yeah, it is actually good if you have some interest in monastic life, then go and visit some monasteries and see what it feels like. And if it feels like that's the right thing for you, then it's worth investigating. And if not, well, then you just practice well as a layperson, and that's also perfectly fine.
And Moonfire asks, my practice has fallen off lately. I'm trying to bring it back to where it was. Any tips besides more regular meditation, which is helping? Yes, reading the suttas. The suttas, really, they really have everything we need to know. So that's something that has really helped me in the past. Was I would literally do what I would call these brainwashing retreats. In the way that I would lock myself up when it was the winter retreat, and I would only read suttas or meditate. I was either reading suttas or meditating. Like if I didn't want to read, I would meditate. If I didn't want to meditate, I would read. If I didn't want to read, I would meditate. If I didn't want to meditate, I would read. And I would go through so many suttas that's why I called it the brainwashing retreat. Because it would just start like completely redirecting my mind towards the Dhamma and completely sort of removing the other brainwashing that had the sort of conditioning that had convinced me to do something else, to get into, I don't know, whatever glitters and shines in samsara, and that distracts us, and we can get very ADHD about. Like, oh yeah, this is really important, I have to do this thing much better than whatever else, right? And so why do we do those actions? Because actually the world has brainwashed us. Mara has brainwashed us. So reading the suttas nonstop, like cutting out those sort of that period of time to only do that practice, I found was really beneficial to redirect the mind and really get that energy. And if you're one of the few people that doesn't resonate with the suttas, which I don't know, but they do exist, I've come to the realization, then maybe, find, I don't know, a teacher that, I don't know, maybe Ajahn Chah, everybody loves Ajahn Chah. So then just read Ajahn Chah, something like that. But some really authentic, pure Dharma that really gives you the right energy. So I hope that is helpful.
I would also recommend bowing and chanting. So don't just go straight into doing meditation. Have a nice Buddha altar that you've set up and start with doing 3 bows and some devotional chanting, and candles, incense, flowers on the altar. And you'll notice that these things help to support the mind. It helps to put the mind into a useful space for getting more out of your practice. And also it brings joy to the mind. It brings a sense of brightness to the mind, which tends to permeate the day. So yeah, do puja before meditation. Candles, flowers, incense, bowing, chanting, then do your meditation. Okay, that looks like the last question. So maybe...
Yes, and that was the last question. Thank you so much for all of your great questions and good old friends and also some new friends. So we can end this morning with 3 sadhus. Sadhu, sadhu.